I understand that this event is being filmed. Does anyone have any objections to the event being filmed?
So who's filming it? For what reason?
Just as a record.
As a record?
Oh, for Andrew.
Yeah.
We're going to get our
Object to only film. He's not a very good cameraman.
And also there's a TV channel, ATN Bangla, who's doing some shots. There's a whole thing about shots.
Do we have a problem with that, or is that okay?
It's
Just of the candidates, not the audience. So.
As long as it's not the audience.
Yeah.
Not the audience that can film the candidates. Okay, thank you very much for that.
Good point.
A little bit of housekeeping, everybody. We have emergency exits. It's one at the back, next to the back, there's an exit over there. There is a toilet, but if you want it, you have to go to the headmaster's office. Which is just there on the right. On the side of the hall is a full list of the candidates and the polling station locations and party literature. So if you want to dig deeper than you're able to get from the discussions we're going to have tonight, that's where you can find those. And before I introduce everybody, can I just sort of, in case of some of you don't know what the Underdogs Neighbourhood Planning Forum is about. By the way, can you all hear me okay? Good acoustics, Miss Hall. We should use it more often.
Yeah.
The Underdogs Neighbourhood Planning Forum was set up in 2014 to address the intense development that's going on in this area and the need for infrastructure and other things to support that development in an appropriate way. The community's had an enormous success already in getting focus onto these issues. We've just done a public consultation. We're collecting together the many responses we've had. We will be looking at those and adjusting the proposals, and then we hand it to the council, and then it's up to the council to progress the matter. And in due course, the neighbourhood plan that we'll be consulting on will be put up to all of us as an election here, a referendum of all of us on the island to vote for that, and that would then become planning policy on the same level as the local plan that Tower Hamlets does. So it's a very important document for us. Please do take a look at it. It's on our website, and the consultation is still open, even though we're gradually closing it off. It's been open for several weeks now. So that's what the forum's about, writing a neighbourhood plan so the community can help determine how this area is developed. But the forum has developed itself into a bit of a community group in other respects as well. And we did hustings like these for the last mayoral election, which I'm told were far and away the best attended and most entertaining hustings that happened in that election. So we're looking to try and achieve the same. Some of you, no doubt, have your televisions on record for 7:30. We did ask Theresa May, but she was our last case. She's not. I think that's my point. Let me just introduce the candidates. I'll take it from right to left, but don't read anything into politics in terms of that. On my far right is Elaine Bagshaw from the Liberal Democrats. Then we have David Barker, who's an independent. Jim Fitzpatrick is for the Labour Party, and to my left is Bethan Lant from the Green Party, McQueen from UKIP, and Wilford from the Conservative Party. I've been asked to give apologies for Cllr Oliur Rahman, who is an independent who was already booked to attend an event elsewhere. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to ask the candidates in alphabetical order, their surnames, to give a short statement to you of up to 5 minutes. I will be timing it carefully. And we'll just go through that one by one. I've collected already a number of questions. You can give me slips of paper. But you'll get a big Q&A session after they've given their speeches, and hopefully what they say will help inform some of your questions as well. So, without further ado, I'd like to ask Elaine Bagshaw, over there. Sorry, of course you're in alphabetical order already, just to give a few opening remarks and your 5 minutes start.
Right. Thank you all for coming, and apologies for having to miss the bigger debate on TV. A bit about me, so I have lived in Tower Hamlets for about 7 years. I live near Upper North Street. I've been there for about 5 years. I'm the only person in my family that's ever been to university. My dad was a builder and my mum works for Job Centre Plus. I grew up in Nottingham. We never had a lot of money growing up, so quite deprived circumstances, quite similar to how some people grow up in Tower Hamlets now. I was very lucky to get out and be able to go on and succeed, and it's those kind of opportunities that got me into politics, because I want to make sure that other people get those kind of opportunities, and that I was so lucky and so privileged to get when I was younger. So I'll talk about three of what I think are the big issues in this election, and then obviously you'll get the chance to question me on anything that I miss. So the first one is obviously Brexit. This is something that will impact the local area quite significantly. During the election, I've met with the European Medicines Agency, the European Banking Authority, that are both on Canary Wharf, and Canary Wharf Group itself, and Mudchute City Farm as well, to talk about how all of them are going to be impacted by what could happen in terms of loss of funding. There are 30,000 hotel nights a year that are all brought in by the European Medicines Agency, and that will disappear. So the ripple effect of Brexit could be huge in this area. One of the things that we want to do as a party is make sure that you and I have the final say on the deal that comes back from Europe, so if it doesn't work for us, we're able to reject it. On the NHS, I was in and out of hospitals with my younger brother growing up. He was born with a hole in his heart and had a number of other problems, so we spent a lot of time being looked after by the NHS, and he wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. I've also just finished a stint working for them for the past 6 months as well, trying to help them plough money back into frontline care. So I've seen firsthand how stretched people are, the amazing work that nurses and doctors do, but that they just don't have enough funding. We want to put a penny on income tax to raise an extra £6 billion a year for the NHS and create a health and social care service. So rather than at the moment where people can get stuck in hospital because we don't have care in the community, that all starts working together, and £1 billion of that money each year will be preserved for mental health funding as well, so that gets treated in the same way as physical care. And housing, obviously, is a really big issue in Tower Hamlets. So there's a number of things that we want to do. First of all, we want to set up a housing and development bank that's run by the government, so that we will get the government building more and better homes that we really need, and more affordable ones. We will ban letting agents' fees and support renters through tackling rogue landlords. One thing that's really relevant for what's happening on the island, I think, as well, is we'll set up a community right of appeal. So if something is approved by either the council or the London Authority that goes against the local plan, as a community you have a right to appeal that and to stop that from happening, whereas at the moment things tend to go to City Hall and just get approved and we all just have to deal with it.
30 seconds.
Okay. So to close, I know it's been the same kind of leadership in Tower Hamlets for a long time. People feel that the seat isn't all that competitive. I think this is an election where it's an opportunity to change all that. It was quite a surprise, but it's an historic election, and it's your chance to have your say on the future of the country.
Thank you very much. David, 5 minutes, David Barker.
So I'm David Barker. I can't sell the benefits of a party, so but I can try and sell myself as why I think an independent MP like me would be a good vote for Poplar Limehouse. My background is I was born in Manchester in a poor community, and told by my careers teacher at 15, David, because of your background, you're never going to get into technology. I didn't believe it, thankfully, and I got an apprenticeship, and then 7 years later I became one of the first internet entrepreneurs back in 1994. Unfortunately, many of my friends believed the lie they couldn't achieve, and they stayed behind, got into crime, got into long-term unemployment, and so many do fall behind, even though a few get away. And I did get away for 10 years. The next 10 years I became very wealthy. I could be one of the top 10 UK digital agencies in the UK till 2004. And I saw the rich get richer, and I saw the poor get poorer, and I worked globally with big corporations, and I said, this isn't good enough. Capitalism isn't good enough. It needs to get better. And I did a handbrake turn. I resigned from my company, and I started a new journey on how can I get involved to change the world and help more people have prosperity. I didn't just focus on people like me. I said, I've got to find a way to help everyone from every background. So I worked with street gangs, I worked with single mothers, and people who've been abused as children, and people from all walks of life, to understand their challenges and issues, and how do we help you get out of this issue and have more prosperity. And out of that, I didn't just stay in London, I went across the UK and different countries around the world, looking at how can we have global prosperity for all. But then I came back to London, because we can't tackle poverty on our doorstep. What right do we have to go to other countries thinking we can? So I stay here and I've been creating social enterprises myself that's been helping training the people out of work from all social backgrounds. I've got involved in other projects. I'm on the Tower Hamlets Interfaith Forum looking at antisocial behaviour. I've joined the Tower Hamlets Independent Advisory Group working with the police and the council on strategies and solutions for antisocial behaviour. So I'm very much involved. But all this has been me as an entrepreneur getting involved. And for me now, a couple of years ago, I just felt capitalism's broken, but so is politics. I feel it's getting worse. The world's getting worse, and I feel I can't ask you to stand for politics if I'm not willing to give it a go myself. So I am standing, and I'm standing in Poplar Limehouse because it's still got 43% child poverty, the third highest in the UK, and it's not good enough. I know it's not good enough, so I'm standing here. We're moving here. I got married last August, which is why you'll see I currently live in Hayes and Harlington, but we're moving to Poplar Limehouse end of this year. So we will be coming here, and I really hope that our vote for Barker means I can work together with the residents of Poplar Limehouse, and standing together, we can really change society for the better. So I hope you'll consider voting Barker on June 8th.
Thank you very much. Jim Fitzpatrick, your 5 minutes.
Thank you, Richard, and good evening, everybody. I'm Jim Fitzpatrick. I'm the Labour candidate in this election. For the last 20 years, I've been the Member of Parliament for this area, and before that, I was a fireman with London Fire Brigade for 23 years. As some of you know, I was planning to retire, had the last Parliament run its full term to 2020, but the Prime Minister had other ideas. The 2017 election means that I'm standing again in Parliament, as well as playing a full part in debates and routine business. I've served as a Minister and a Shadow Minister. I've been on 2 select committees, and I've acted as Chair for a number of all-party parliamentary groups. For example, Air Ambulances. I was Vice Chair, but the Chair went on maternity leave and I was asked to take over, and we helped secure over £10 million from the Chancellor this year from LIBOR fines for Air Ambulances. I'm Chair also of the Deafness All-Party Group. I'm wearing my hearing aids damaged in the Fire Brigade. I'm Chair of the Headache Disorders APPG. I suffer from trigeminal neuralgia and have had neurosurgery. I'm Chair of the Leasehold Reform APPG. We have the second highest number of leaseholders in the country here in Poplar Limehouse, outside the cities of Westminster. I'm Chair also of Fit and Healthy Childhood, given obesity levels, of the Markets Group, given the historic markets in Tower Hamlets, of Maritime and Ports, because I was Shipping Minister and former Shipping Minister, and the great shipping history of this part of London. And Chair of the Tidy Britain All-Party Group, because I hate litter and was Minister for Keep Britain Tidy. I also play a prominent role in the Fire All-Party Group, and I'm Chair of Fire Aid, a new charity working in 30 countries where UK firefighters are helping save lives. I'm patron of the Shripur Village Orphanage in Bangladesh, and my wife Sheila is a trustee. And I'm on the EFRA Select Committee, and some of the recent work we've done has been on waste, food waste, air quality and animal welfare, all matters that I'm very interested in. In the last 20 years, I've held Friday evening advice surgeries in Poplar on the 1st, 2nd and 4th Fridays of each month, bar the big holidays, and my experienced team and I had more than 10,000 cases attend those surgeries, and we've over 26,000 people on our database who've contacted us since 2010 alone. I do my own tours of the Houses of Parliament, and I've guided nearly 10,000 constituents, families and friends through the 900 years of our history contained in the Palace of Westminster. It appears to me that big issues locally in this election are housing, education of children, the NHS and antisocial behaviour. Brexit has been raised, and it is a huge issue, but it's not actually spoken a lot about on the doorstep. Now, I've got no magic wand, but I and my team have the experience of dealing with these issues, and the last Labour government has significant success in a number. When we came to power in 1997, the NHS was on its knees after 18 years of Tory government. We got close to eliminating waiting lists and rebuilt most of our hospitals and GP health centres. 20 years ago, Tower Hamlets schools were on the floor. But our investment in our anti-child poverty strategy, Sure Start centres, smaller class sizes, more teachers and assistants, and investment in buildings and equipment is showing that our children are as smart as any in the country, and local exam results prove that. On housing, we raised over 1.5 million homes above the decency threshold, cut rough sleeping by 2/3, but we need more homes, and homes that local people can afford. Our manifesto promises just that. However, in the last 7 years, we've been going backwards. Fewer homes built, rough sleeping up year on year, school budgets facing massive cuts, child poverty on the rise, and the NHS heading back into crisis territory. Labour in our manifesto is promising to reverse these measures and to do lots more whilst protecting 95% of taxpayers against tax rises. Labour is also promising 10,000 more police, and I'm pleased that the new Borough Commander of Police has made ASB one of her top priorities. On planning issues, which I know is close to many people here, I work with the council where I can, and I'm pleased to see Councillor Candida Ronald here today because I liaise with her and Mayor Biggs and David Chesterton on these issues, because planning matters are decided by the Mayor and the Council and the Mayor of London. But when they go past that stage, I can be more involved where there is a gap in regulation, such as the cruise terminal in the Wharf, then I can do a lot to represent the Council and local people. I'm proud to have served our community for the past 20 years, not only because of our rich history here, but also because of its exciting future, which unfolds every day. If you've supported me before, I thank you for that, but whether you have or you haven't, I would very much welcome your support on June the 8th. Thank you very much.
You're all exceptionally good at keeping to time. It's bang on. Bethan.
Good evening, thank you for inviting me here tonight. So to say a little bit about myself, I have lived in Poplar Limehouse for around 13 years now. I have 2 children who attend school in the borough, and I also work in the borough. I work for a charity which helps vulnerable people. I've been active in the local community around a number of issues for quite some time. I've done a lot of work around migrant rights, affordable housing and the living wage. And last year I was part of a group which organised an exhibition of East End women's history in opposition to the Jack the Ripper Museum which opened on Cable Street. I joined the Green Party because I could see that there are a lot of things that need to be done to make our community better, and I wanted to be part of getting those things done and making life better for everyone, and that's why I joined the Green Party, and that's why I'm standing in Parliament. I can't say to you that at the end of next week we're going to have a Green Party government. I'm not that delusional. But what I can say to you is that a vote for the Green Party gives us a mandate to do what the Green Party do well, which is to speak up and hold others to account for the things which we believe in. We believe in taking a long-term visionary approach to issues. We know that we can't afford to think short-term any longer. Short-term austerity measures are hurting everyone. Our NHS has been decimated. Our schools are facing still further cuts, which will account to a loss of 2 teachers in every primary school across the borough. Our justice system is almost grinding to a halt because of cuts. We can't afford this. Short-term austerity is causing long-term suffering and long-term costs. We also want to bring vision around a range of different issues. So the environment is obviously something that the party is strongly associated with. And yes, we stand up for the environment. We believe that in this borough, where we have some of the worst air quality of any areas in the country, someone needs to speak up and talk about the environment and talk about what's happening, about the way our children are being affected by schools built next to roads where the air quality is so poor that their developing lungs are affected. We believe that people need to speak out on local environmental issues like Silvertown Tunnel, Enderby Wharf, and Soup Sewer, which is being built around King Edward Memorial Park. We think these things are important, and we think people care about these as much as they do about some of the other issues. We also recognise that things like Brexit are important. Where we differ from the Lib Dems is that we believe, as well as offering a vote upon the deal, whether we accept the deal or whether we go for another deal, we think people should also have a decision at that point to say, actually, we've looked at both options and we think that we don't want this anymore. We don't think democracy should have ended with a referendum way back last year, but it should continue. At the point where, if we have Brexit, if it goes ahead, anyone who is, I think, 19 years old and 9 months will not have had a vote on their future. We think that's wrong. We think that if you vote Green, then we will be able to hold people, the government, whoever gets into government next week, to account on the issues which matter. In terms of housing, we've recognised that affordable housing is a huge issue in the borough. I myself, I have lived in a 1-bedroom flat with my 2 children for the last 9 years. I spent most of today moving all of my belongings out of my flat because I am moving out, but I have nowhere to go right now, so I'm temporarily homeless. So in terms of housing issues, it's something I can relate to quite strongly. We believe in putting investment into social housing rather than taking it out as been done for so many years now, so that everyone in this borough has a chance for an affordable and comfortable home. We believe that we should be putting money into the NHS rather than taking it out and privatising it. We believe we should be backing away from PFI deals, which have taken so much money out of our NHS and caused long-term damage. We think that if you vote Green next week, then you will give us a mandate to fight for your public services, to fight for the environment, and to fight for the democracy that we deserve.
Amazed at the inbuilt clocks which people have that bang on their phones. McQueen.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks very much for coming. I was one of the few that helped convince a huge part of our Hamlets to Brexit. We are Brexiting. We need to back Theresa May, who will be our new Prime Minister in the coming election. But that's not really what it's about here in Tower Hamlets today. We need somebody to represent us and demand that our problems are sorted out here. At the moment we've got Jim, but you heard he's very busy doing a lot of other things, which is why we don't hear him in Parliament talking about the local Ofsted report we've just had, where our children are being abused and we've not intervened, where our children are hungry in the summer holidays. I mean, we're one of the richest countries in the world. It's shameful. And no one is speaking up. We have one scandal after another here, and it's all shifted under the carpet. We have to have the police at the ballot box because our election isn't even right. And you might think it's right this time. I don't. I'm still not confident we're going to get a fair election. Every time we get a scandal in Tower Hamlets, no one seems to stand up and put it to central government. We need more help here than many other boroughs and many other places in the UK. At the moment, there's so much crime going on, sensitive policing, they're not arresting people, because they don't want to be called racist. And I mean, for instance, Shadwell, I get so many letters about Shadwell, the crap that's being sold there. And when I asked the police, why aren't you arresting these people? They said, oh no, sensitive policing, we do intelligence and all this stuff. But society, I've watched degrade here hugely. I'm born here. I'm sick of listening to all this rhetoric about we're going to fix the national wealth, we're going to fix this. And you never hear another word from our politicians after the election. I'm just an ordinary guy from the East End who wants to hear Tower Hamlets mentioned in central government. We really do need help. I mean, they're very naive, the politicians we have, pretty much school kids going straight into politics, not understanding what the real world's about. And, well, for instance, they don't want to pay for the elderly care, so they end up locking up the national health. They're all in the beds and our youth can't get the operations. We don't want to pay for the kids' clubs. We don't want to invest into our children, so we end up locking them up in prisons. We will have to pay the bill eventually. So yes, we need extra help in Tower Hamlets, and we need someone to go to central government and demand that we are helped. So that's really my understanding, and it's not about Brexit. We've already achieved that. They're still moaning and wanting to have another vote on it, right? The Lib Dems want to offer you marijuana for your vote. They want to offer you another, you know, and I mean, Corbyn, come on, he's 4 times over the bill. He can't do anything he's promising. He might as well just promise us all 50,000 in their Christmas cards. And I mean, you know, unless he's got money trees under Parliament, where's he getting the money from? So people ask me all the time, UKIP, you've done your job, why are you standing? Because I'm here because of my conscience. I can't not talk to you, right? I'm driven by common sense, not socialism or you know, one of these political ideals. I'm just an ordinary person that will determine a solution for every given problem with common sense, integrity, and that's pretty much where I'm coming from. So yeah, I need to help Theresa May in Parliament to get a good deal, because if we don't get a good deal, the working class are going to pay the cost of that. Okay? We're the ones who are going to suffer. Okay. So that's the reason I'm still UKIP. Please lend me your vote if you're Conservative. I will support Theresa May, and if you're the working class, please lend me your vote, and we will overturn these extreme socialists that have been not doing anything for us for the last 20 years. Thank you very much.
Chris Wilford from the Conservatives.
Well, thanks for supporting Theresa May. This is a national election, and it comes at a crucial moment in our nation's story. Last year, we took the historic decision to leave the European Union, and the Prime Minister has called this election to strengthen her hand in those Brexit negotiations. The fundamental question you need at the back of your mind in this election, where every vote will count, is who do you want going into that room to negotiate with the other EU 27? As well as being an historic election, this is also a time of great change in Poplar Limehouse. In 2014, I ran to be mayor against Oliur Rahman. In 2015, I also stood to be your Member of Parliament here. And based on that experience, I formed a 3-point plan for Poplar Limehouse. Number 1 is sustainable development. No more extra developments without adequate schools, infrastructure and transport links. Number 2, strong schools. We have committed nationally to review the fairer funding formula so no school is left behind, but we need extra funding here to cope with anticipated population growth. As you know, over 50,000 new units will be built in Poplar Limehouse alone. We need over 15,000 school places to cope with that. I will be a strong voice in government to get what we need. Number 3 is tackling the antisocial epidemic that is spilling out onto our streets. This includes nitrous oxide canisters, which are everywhere, with people getting high on them, going around boy racing, and it also includes giving the police extra powers that they need. This is a crucial election. We've come a long way since the economic crisis. Let's lock in that progress and back Theresa May to get the right deal for Britain.
Very good, thank you all of you. We're now going to do a Q&A. Now I've got some questions that some of you have put in already. I will take questions from the floor as well. If you want to ask a question, please give your name and then ask the question. I'm not going to allow all questions to be focused on any one individual exclusively. We're going to spread them around the panel. So forgive me, because there may be some of you who only want to focus on one person. So let's take one or two of the initial questions. Candida wanted a question about GPs.
If elected, what will the panel do to address the severe shortage of GPs in London?
And why do we go from right to left?
So one of the first things we want to do is remove the public sector pay cap, because one of the things that does means that people can't afford to come and live here. Aligned with that as well is making sure that we're investing in key worker housing and making sure that there's far more of that in the area. And I think one of the other things we want to do is bring back the bursaries and grants that there were for university students, whereas under the current government it's all been moved to fees. There are no grants or bursaries at all to try and make sure that more people go into it as an option, so that we've got a larger pool of people to draw from in order to recruit more GPs in London.
Thank you.
I think for me, it's not just about increasing the volume but the quality. I think for me the quality in poorer areas actually is not good enough. So I think it's about incentivising, like you say, more GPs in, but actually getting the right quality of GPs as well. So I want to be making sure I'm going to have to find the right calibre of GPs for Poplar Limehouse as well.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
It's a great question, Candida, because GPs are clearly in huge demand, and we're losing them, and I don't know why we're losing them. In the first instance, there has been a cut in the amount of money being put into training. I think we should be incentivising young people to go into medicine and universities. I think we should be putting handcuffs on them for the first 5 years to say that we're saying that we will eliminate tuition fees, but before we did that, we should have been saying to prospective medical students, we will reduce or eliminate your tuition fees, but you will handcuff yourself to the NHS for the first 5 years. And in that instance, once they're in the NHS, once they've got a decent job, once they're committed to a community, they're more likely to stay in that community. It takes 7 years to train a GP. When we came to power in 1997, as I said in my speech, the NHS was on its knees. we recruited and we trained the numbers that managed to get almost managed to get the elimination of waiting lists. In that instance, it's really important we had them. We fought a campaign only 2 years ago here in Cllr Hamlets to save our GP surgeries because the Tories were going to close GP surgeries across the piece. It was a successful campaign with GPs, with patients, with other clinicians as well. And we've got to make sure that as with the extra number of people who are moving into the borough, we need to have the health services available, and GPs are a fundamental part of that. It is a contradiction for the Tories when they're saying reduce immigration. We need to bring some GPs in, but they have to be of the right quality, they have to be able to speak English, and we need to find the places that they will stay in, because GP surgeries are much more important, no disrespect to our hospitals. 90% of health visits are with GPs, not with our hospitals. So they're the front line, and that's why they need the investment.
Okay, thank you very much. Bethan.
Yes, we're certainly facing a severe shortage of GPs in London, and we're due to lose more as more are going to retire quite soon, and we just don't have people available to replace them. We certainly need in the long term to be encouraging more people to train as GPs, certainly by removing tuition fees and by making sure that students have grants available to them so they can train and become GPs. We need to talk to the GPs and find out, okay, well, what would make you stay in the profession? What would make you stay in London? What would help you to be a good GP in London? And that may well be down to housing, it may be down to key worker housing, it may be down to having a pay increase, which is not at this time allowed by the public sector pay cap. But we really need to consult with the doctors and find out what matters to them and what would help them. Doctors are burning out at a tremendous rate. Mental health problems among doctors and stress-related illnesses are at an all-time high. They can't cope with the NHS as it is because of all the additional burdens and stresses that are being put on them. Part of NHS funding is to look at GP surgeries and how to make those more effective and how to work better with secondary health care. I think that there is also a need when we're looking at planning and development to make sure that we take into account access to public services like GPs, and make sure that if there are planning applications to build a whole load of new houses in an area, that there are sufficient GP surgeries as well as schools and other things to serve that community that's being placed there. And if there aren't, then we need to be serious questions asked about whether the development should go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Nick.
They've said quite a lot of it, but I mean, I think clearly the important part is with all the new developments that are going up, there is no planning from John and his department. Maybe there should be some type of tax put on each property so that there are more surgeries built and investment made into the structure of the community. It's clearly not being done, and we're feeling the effects of it. I mean, when I was a child, I'd go to the doctors around here, straight in, no appointment, they'd see me within about 20 minutes. Look at it today. There's flats going up everywhere, people moving in wholesale, and you have to make an appointment for 2 or 3 days or even longer to see a GP. By the time you get to the GP, you're even better, or you need hospitalisation. It's really not working. It needs to be reviewed completely, and obviously there's investment needed. And there's various ways we can get that investment. Just need a little bit more ingenuity in achieving that. But yeah, the National Health has been destroyed by the Labour Party. They sold our hospitals, rented them back. We now pay millions per week in rent instead of giving that money to the needy patients that need it. It's another sort of a loan they've made with a different name other than a loan. So yeah, I'm quite upset with what Labour has done to us in Town Hamlets.
Chris.
Well, we have protected our increased health funding and our pledge to invest £8 billion extra as a real terms increase over the next 5 years. However, locally, I think things aren't good enough. I don't think what we're getting at the moment reflects our population growth, and we're not getting the right deal. Look, I'm a Tory in Tower Hamlets, I'm a street fighter. I'm not afraid to rock the boat. I've got a meeting with the Chancellor tomorrow morning, and I'll be very aggressively putting him on the spot, saying, look, we are not getting what we put back in. Look, we're the 3rd largest economic area in the United Kingdom. We give £12 billion a year to the Treasury, we get about £3 billion back. Let's get more of that back. Let's get more to cope with the extra population, and I'll be a relentless champion for you. So at a national level, we are sustaining that funding, but we need to get more of that back for us. And I think that's about strong local leadership, working with groups like yourself, making sure we get out there and put them on the spot and get the right deal.
Thank you. Candida, have you got any thoughts on what you've heard?
I think a lot of the panel didn't necessarily understand the question, which was about GPs and not about hospitals, and about the fact that there is a real issue with GPs across the country. The contracts which have been, the Tory government has been trying to impose on GPs have sent lots of people away from the profession, and they're finding it incredibly difficult now to recruit. So one of the issues which comes up all the time in the planning forum is about infrastructure. A key part of the infrastructure is not just about the buildings, it's about people in those buildings. There is a real crisis in London and we have to address it.
Does anyone want to come back on that? Go on, Jim.
All I'd like to say, I apologise to Candida for not focusing in on that which she wanted to really make as her point, which is the way that GPs have been treated. The junior hospital doctor strike was very much endemic of the way that the NHS have been treating the way that the Tories have been treating the NHS. When they were in power for 18 years, they drove it onto its knees. We're only 7 years in, and we're seeing the junior doctors hospital strike. We're seeing GP surgeries, cyber surgeries campaigns all over the place. We see people not being able to get doctors' appointments because of the shortage of GPs. The NHS is on its way back to crisis territory, and we need to make sure it gets the money it deserves. My wife Sheila was a GP for over 20 years. Her son and daughter-in-law are junior doctors in hospital. We know exactly what's going on in the National Health Service, and I think if you ask the people out there, who do they trust more with the NHS, I think they'll say Jeremy Corbyn rather than Jeremy Hunt every day of the week.
Anyone else want to say something?
Yeah, I just think on that, if we look at, the proof is in the pudding, as it were, and, it's a very nice turn of phrase, but if you look in Wales, where Labour has sort of been managing the NHS, the budget's been cut by 8%. In Scotland, the SNP haven't met up with the 9% increase that we've had in England. I just think, under Labour in Wales, the cancer target hasn't been met since 2008. So we do get a lot of heat as Conservatives with regards to the NHS. But if you look, we've always sort of been standing up for it, maintaining the funding. And yes, I do agree locally, especially with GPs, it's not been matching the population growth. That's why we need a strong champion as part of a larger government who's got those direct links to get the right deal.
Can I say something? I'm Sheila Fitzpatrick. I've been a doctor for 41 years, and I can tell you why GPs are leaving. It's because of the overburdening of paperwork, the tremendous pressure and long hours they're having to work, and it's not about money. We never went into this job for money. It's a profession because we're dedicated. And what you need to do is look at this in the whole. The Tories reorganised the NHS, got rid of PCTs, cost us billions, then we employed the same people on commissioning groups. Now that's taking clinicians out of what they want to do, which is seeing patients.
Okay.
That's how you keep doctors. Give them what they want to do.
Like,
Go ahead, one comment.
okay, just because my aunt's a GP, and she specialises in dermatology and does deal with services in Tower Hamlets. And actually, she's found some of those reforms have assisted her in working. I agree, there's a long way to go locally, but just to create this simple picture, it's a lot more complex than that.
All right. Let's move on. We've got lots more subjects to cover. James, you wanted to talk about education funding.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the panel who are elected as MP to halt and reverse the sweeping cuts funding in Tower Hamlets, particularly like the rebalancing of school funding, and also how they're going to address because of the nature of the cuts, the loss of staff wholesale in schools in Tower Hamlets, particularly support staff who do such a valuable job in supporting teachers, and how they're then going to retain teachers off the back of the fact that their workload will then increase further.
Okay, thank you. Let's do the other way around. So, Chris, you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, page 51 of our manifesto, we've listened to those concerns. From 2018, we've revised that fair funding formula, actually now committed to a £4 billion real terms increase in school funding, and from 2018, no school will be left behind. So we have taken that on board. You know, very significant campaign going on there, and I agree it was going to go too far of a way. So we've listened to that. But then also, locally, we need to fight for that better deal so we can cope with population growth. As I said, we've got 15,000 extra school places we're going to need. So yes, we've listened to those concerns at the national level, but we also need to make sure we keep up the tempo to make sure we get that money back that we're contributing so we can spend it locally.
Okay, let's go right. So Nick.
It's not realistic that the Conservative candidate would attack his own party on the cuts they're making against us, which is a reason why you should really vote for UKIP, because I really would attack them for cutting anything out of town hamlets. And this is all what's going on with the Tories. All they want to do is make the less fortunate in society pay the bill. So yes, I would fight for reinstatement of the cuts. And as we know, when you beat the Tories with a stick, like the death tax, they change their mind. We can get them to change their minds. But the Labour Party don't really seem to be doing a good job at that. So yes, we can save some of the money for the schools, and that is what I would do if I was voting as MP.
Bethan.
Yes, the Green Party is committed to a real term increase per pupil for schools and to stop any further cuts to schools. I certainly agree that support staff are underpaid and undervalued. They do a tremendous job working with our children. If we don't value the people who work with our children, then who should we be valuing? The Green Party is committed to take money away from this free school initiative. The government seems to be committed to opening up more free schools, despite the fact that the cost of a place in a free school is 51% that of a place in a normal school. We want to get rid of the free schools, get rid of the academies, bring them all back under local education authority and control. The local education authority is in the best position to know what is needed in terms of schools in their area, and they should be the ones making those decisions. We believe that you should scrap certainly the idea of grammar schools. Schools should be comprehensive, they should be for all, and everyone should get the best deal, not just people who will be creamed off the top. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Jim.
Thank you, James. I think this is one of the clearest areas of difference between us and the Conservative Party. And with no disrespect to the minor parties and the independents, this election is between Labour and Conservative. And it's certainly between Labour and Conservative here in Poplar and Limehouse. The Conservatives have been exercising or trying to exercise a U-turn, not just in social care, but the Prime Minister got completely bushwhacked by Andrew Neil and demonstrated that strong and stable she is not. Weak and frightened look far more appropriate than strong and stable. They did a U-turn on the education cuts. Most people didn't see it. And they didn't see it because it was sneaked into the manifesto that they would invest $4 billion more in education, which Chris has mentioned. What Chris didn't mention was that the fair funding formula will still exist, which means that it doesn't mean that we will get our share of that £4 billion. And even if the whole £4 billion is spent, it will still mean a 9% reduction over the years of education funding across the piece. So schools will still be losing. When I raised the matter with the Minister of State for Education, Nickolas, in Parliament 2 months ago, and used the statistics that were given to me by head teachers here on the Early Dogs, and Cubitt Town was the biggest loser among the head teachers who wrote to me. His answer was, Tower Hamlet schools get more money than any other borough in the country, full stop. In other words, tough. You're going to lose some because we're going to give it to somebody else. At the same time, the announcement that they made that they were cutting free school meals and they were heading for breakfast instead, and they didn't say they were going to spend 9 per breakfast for kids. Michael Gove, when he was Education Secretary, promised to schools that they would be investing in school meals, and school heads and governing bodies and LEAs, and I'm pleased to see Mayor John Biggs here this evening. Thanks very much for coming, John. I know that residents will appreciate your attendance. Local authorities invested in new kitchen equipment on the expectation that the government are going to bring in free school meals, and they've gone back on that. Larger class sizes, they're growing all the time. Schools have been losing assistants, they'll be losing teachers, they'll be losing equipment. This is a major issue. We promised to reverse the Tory cuts and to make sure that our schools, with the pupil premium and with the arts premium, will get the funding they deserve. I made a big issue in my speech. 20 years ago, Tower Hamlet schools were on the floor. Our kids were getting no passes relevant to the national average. Our schools now, all of our secretaries are above the national average. That's because of the work done by teachers, classroom assistants, parents and governors, and the investment Labour made in that education. Our kids should be competing for the best jobs in the country. They're not going to be able to do it if they're not given the tools to do the job.
Thank you.
I mean, you're so right. I mean, my wife's a secondary school teacher at an academy, and it's shocking. She's crying, nearly crying. The support staff are leaving. She's been asked to personalise every lesson to 30 kids on her own with no support staff. And not investing in our education, just saving costs for the future, unemployment and social behaviour. So we need to find the money. The money is there, there just isn't the will to put the money in the right place. So again, working as an independent for Poplar Limehouse, my only commitment is to the schools and the people of Poplar and Limehouse, and I can be an effective voice of opposition to support good ideas, but also to bring in where we need to do better, and we've got to find the money for education, as simple as that. So I will be fighting hard to make sure that happens.
Thank you. Elaine.
Yeah, education is one of the things that can make the biggest difference to people's lives. It definitely did to mine, and so it's one of the things that I'm really passionate about. Whilst it's good that there's been a sort of U-turn from the Tories on this, I think it's telling that it was even on the table in the first place to start taking so much money away from kids and not giving them the opportunities that they deserve. As a party, we've said that we'd reverse any of the changes that they've tried to make to the funding formula. We'd triple the pupil premium, which is targeted at people from particularly disadvantaged backgrounds, and we'd protect free school lunches as well. So all, just in Tower Hamlets, that would bring us an extra £62 million into our schools to make sure we get the support staff that we need and that kids get the education that they deserve and they get the opportunity to succeed.
Thank you. James, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I have personal experience of being in a school that is about to lose half of their support staff. And I don't think you can overestimate the knock-on effect of that on the rest of the staff. It's well known about the high turnover of teaching staff in vulnerable schools, and particularly in borough like Tower Hamlets. Like I said, the additional workload placed on class teachers without having the support staff there, particularly in a borough that has such high level of child poverty, I think is really concerning.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else want to follow up on education before we move on?
Can I just say one thing? I mean, John closed down 3 nurseries in the East End and gave himself a pay rise, didn't you, John? I mean, this is the sort of attitude from the Labour Party. This is why I stand. I'm here to stand up for the children, because the children don't have a voice. Lots of these people out there have a voice, the pensioners, the disabled, you know, but the children don't have a voice, and they really are suffering in Tower Hamlets, and we will pay the price of that. We will have to lock them up. This is what happens. So yes, I do feel we need to speak up for the children.
John, if you'd like to ask a question, rather than answer the question, I'm happy to let you do so.
I did not close 3 nurseries.
I guess that might be what you wanted to say. But you remember the audience is these guys are answering the questions tonight.
You didn't have a pay rise.
Let's not make this
I'll just say.
Okay. Has anyone else got anything to say on education?
Just to say that I attended the Education Cuts rally in Mayland Park only last week. There were about 1,500 people there, lots of kids, hundreds of parents, lots of staff, and I spoke at the Christchurch public meeting here in the Early Dogs the week before. There's huge public concern about this issue. I mentioned earlier that we had a very successful campaign against the Tories' plans to cut some of our GP surgeries. We need to run a very similar campaign to protect our schools after the election, whatever happens, because if the Tories are still in power, there will be cuts heading our way, and we need to get together to do everything we can to prevent them from happening.
Anyone else want to say anything on education before we move on? Okay, let's take another one. Glenn, you want to ask a question about the right to vote for social housing estate residents?
Yes, I'm reading out the okay. As far as I know, the only party with a policy on estate regeneration.
Can you speak up a bit?
Okay, so this question is about redevelopment of social housing estate owned by associations or council. And the question is, do you believe that residents should have a right to vote to approve or reject any proposals to demolish their homes in the whole estate? As they did when stock was transferred from councils to housing associations. As far as I know, the only policy on that at the moment is agreement. Some people, Labour and Tory, are in favour, and some lots of people sitting on there.
Okay, do you want to hear that? Okay. And And since you say that Greens have a policy on it, why don't you kick off?
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, we do have a policy on it. We believe absolutely that if you're in social housing, you have a right to vote for your future and decide what happens in that area. And it's something we're very committed to. Social housing is being lost at tremendous rate. They're building and redeveloping lots of sites where social housing was previously and not replacing it with anything like the numbers of social housing that was there previously. That's got to stop. We can't afford to lose more social housing. There's already a social housing crisis. And people in those properties have got nowhere else to go. They're being shipped out of London, sent away, sent to other areas because there just isn't affordable housing for them to go to. So if you don't get a vote on that, then you are missing out on an essential vote on something which is going to have a huge impact on your entire life.
Okay, thank you. Nick, do you believe that social housing estate residents should have a right to vote on redevelopment of those estates?
Yes, I do. I'm quite strong on that point. I'm quite strong on all points that give the residents of Tower Hamlets a say. So the affordable housing that's coming in isn't affordable. So if you're lucky enough to actually be in social housing, it's keeping the community here. You know, we don't want to gentrify the area to the point where we don't have notices and we don't have people to actually make the system work. So yes, I'm very much in favour of supporting anything to do with keeping real affordable housing for people in London.
Thanks, Chris.
Personally, I think so, yes. I think as a party we're pledged to give a referendum on, say, council tax increases. I think, you know, we've said we want to create a new generation of social housing, we want to reform planning to enable that to happen and make it easier for housing associations and councils to borrow against that. As part of that, we need to have residents along the journey with us. I'd be a very strong voice for that.
Okay, thanks. Elaine?
Yes, absolutely. I think you should be able to. It's really concerning for me. I live up near Cllr Street Market, and so that's going through a kind of a similar discussion as Project Stone locally about what gets redeveloped, whether or not people can return to their homes, what happens if the values increase, and it seems overly complicated, and it's just personally, it's not right to me that people have lived in their home and owned it for 20 years, and now it's under threat due to redevelopment. And so absolutely, I think people should get the right to vote whether or not that happens.
David?
Yeah, absolutely agree. They should get that. I think for me, it's the issue of, it seems to a resident paying £650 a month social housing rent, but to pay primarily to £2,000 a month. I think that the problem is the rent at the next stage. They don't want to stay in social housing. They want a social mobility and be set free from social housing. The problem is it's just the huge cost of private rent. So I think we need to give people the vote for social housing, but we need to look at social mobility and affordable rents beyond social housing as well.
Jim?
I totally agree. I know that I've had a copy of the letter that the Four Estates Forum sent to One Housing Group to complain about what was happening. I have a copy correspondence of the correspondence that Mayor Biggs sent to One Housing Group to complain about what was happening. Mayor Biggs says it should be resident-led. The Forum says it should be resident-led. People should have the right to be consulted and the right to vote on proposals. One of the things that I mentioned that I was doing in Parliament was that I co-chair the Leasehold Reform Forum, because leaseholders have been denied rights as well from freeholders and from a whole range of organisations. The Tories tried to fix that in 1996. We tried to fix it in 2002. Leaseholders are still deprived of many rights, and tenants are deprived of many rights which should be theirs as a right. And therefore, in terms of responding to the guy's question, of course they should have a vote on these matters.
Well, it's a policy in the Isle of Dogs neighbourhood plan, so that's part of the importance of the plan. So please do focus on the plan and respond to it. Anyone else got any thoughts on that issue?
I have a microphone if everybody wants to use it rather than trying to shout out, so let me know if you need it.
All right, let's move on. Bethan, you've got a question on the disability living allowance.
Yes, I do. I'm a trustee for a local health charity, and we are seeing on an increasingly regular basis disabled clients coming into us in tears because their disability allowance has been cut. And that means it's cutting their independence, and it is shameful how it's tripling them. I want to know what your party is going to be doing to help support our disabled residents in Tower Hamlets and help support them by giving them the independence and and the freedom to contribute to our society.
Thank you. Jim, do you want to take the office?
I'm happy to do that. Labour Manifesto is committed to making sure that people get that which they're entitled to and that which they need to be able to support them when they are in great difficulties. I and my team are regularly getting people, more regularly than ever, getting people coming to us asking for assistance. More and more appeals against decisions which are taken by DWP officials are being successful because of the pressure put on the civil servants within the Benefits Agency and the Department of Work and Pensions offices to actually take benefits away from people. There is a concerted effort to make people who are the most vulnerable pay for the economic crisis since 2008. And it's just plainly unfair. There needs to be a better way of doing these things. There needs to be a fairer way of doing it. We need to have more clinical assessments to make sure people who are genuinely in trouble get that which they deserve, and that's not what's been happening over the past 7 years.
Okay, thanks. David, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I completely agree. We've got to find the money, otherwise people end up trapped in their homes and no social mobility. So we need to give them the right benefits to enable that social mobility as well. I launched pop-up academies a few years ago to train long-term unemployed. We had disabled people in our academies training, and they got into work, but they couldn't if they didn't have the benefits they had back then, because they couldn't actually have got to the academy. So we need to put them back, not just to keep them where they are, actually to help them move on and get jobs and get employed, you know, and actually sustain their own lives, but they need that spark of benefits to get there.
Thank you. Elaine?
So we've got a number of things that we would want to do. So we'd get rid of the benefit cap and all of the sanctions that there have been for people. I'm just making sure that I get this right. And reverse the personal independence payment 20-metre rule, which means that a lot of people have lost mobility vehicles. We'd also scrap the really controversial assessments that there have been, which I know from my mum working in Jobs Centre Plus have removed a lot of benefits from people that really need them. People have had to go through appeal after appeal after appeal and are still told, no, you're well enough to work when they're clearly not. So those are some of the things that we want to do so that people live with dignity and they can go and work if they want to and if they are really able to, and if they're not, they're still able to live a full and independent life, rather than someone sitting and doing an assessment which is based on the government paying less money rather than that person having the dignity that they deserve.
Thank you. Chris,
yeah, I mean, we spend about £50 billion alone on people with disability and health conditions. Now that does represent a £3 billion real terms increase since 2010, but I appreciate the incredible frustration out there, having met a lot of people who've fallen on the other side of this. We have said that the disability living allowance and the personal independence payment that will follow that will be excluded from our benefits cap and will continue to rise with the consumer price index. But you know, that's the situation. If we're going to fund everything, there are areas that we're doing it. So I appreciate the frustrations there. We are pledged to exclude that from our cap. That's all I can say.
It's another scandal that we're putting up with. They've changed the DLA to PIP, taking disabled people into a courtroom, humiliating them to the highest degree, and then getting it overturned because a chronic illness can't get any better. They've already got the ticket for the DLA, and we're spending at the moment £1 million a week in legal fees to try and do this to the less fortunate in society. Again, the Conservatives are making a huge mistake. You know, chronic illness doesn't get better, it gets worse, you know, so these people shouldn't have been put through this humiliating exercise. It does help them get to work, it helps the country run, they do pay taxes, so yeah, I'm very much against what the Conservatives are doing to the less fortunate again in society. So yeah, we need to stop it.
On Monday, the Green Party launched our Disability Manifesto, where we're specifically looking at the rights of disabled people and making sure that they have the support they need to live with dignity. I know quite a lot about DLA and PIP one way or another. I do a lot of advice work, and I often help people fill in the forms, and I have to say my heart sinks whenever I get a PIP form presented to me, because I know I'm going to be there 7 hours asking lots of meaningless questions and filling it in laboriously about things that really don't make sense. In addition, my partner is a benefits advisor at a local charity and spends a lot of time going through the appeal system with people trying to help them. I often say when I help people fill in the PIP form, what will happen is we'll fill in the form, you'll get refused because they just seem to have a default position of refusing everyone, and then you're going to have to appeal against it. And people go through medical assessments which are by private companies, which are humiliating and demeaning, and where they are not given enough time and they are refused benefits for spurious reasons, such as being able to take your child onto your lap, which means that actually you said in your form you couldn't pick anything up. We saw you pick up your child and put them on your lap, so therefore we're going to deny you benefits. That is absolute madness. I also know quite a lot about it because, in common with Elaine, my mother also works for the benefits agency, and she retired several years ago because she'd been managing a benefits appeal department for several years, and she was asked to train some new people who'd been taken on, give them 2 weeks training on appeals, and then leave them to do the work. And she said, all the people I've trained over the years, after 12 months, I still have 100% oversight over all their work because this is a complex system. They're replacing benefits staff with people on the telephones who don't know anything about the benefits they're actually administering, and that's wrong as well. The system sets people up to fail, and it needs challenging. Thank you.
Peter, does that address your question properly?
It does, thank you. I mean, I think Conservatives have made so many U-turns in the run-up to this election that it's disappointing. And they don't see the shamefulness of this policy and they can only use it.
Well, I mean, we have committed to exclude it from the benefits cap, but, you know, I can't stand here and say I'm growing magic money trees, you know. There is issues that have been made, and I know it's a really emotive issue, but we're having to fund the whole thing. We've got an ageing population, we've got other issues, and we have committed to exclude that from the benefits cap. So that's one thing, but I appreciate the frustrations.
Okay. This being the Neighbourhood Planning Forum, let's take a question on spread of high density development. And Ian, you have a question on this.
It was basically trying to get the views of the panel on the spread of very, very high density housing out with the general high-rise area that we have already in Canary Wharf. That's mainly, of course, business premises and some flats. But it seems as if, to me anyway, that we are building far too high, that the actual density per acre is something like 4 or 5 times anything that we regarded as acceptable 10 years ago. And I was trying to see what the views of the panel would be on this, because it looks to me as if we're heading towards a situation where we've got the equivalent of Hong Kong dealing out the dogs.
Okay, thank you. Where should we start? Nick, you want to take on first?
But what was the question? I understand about that. It was trying to get your views on the spread of high density housing. Whether you think there should be
it's already happened, you know, we're already there. We don't have doctors to, you know, or access on and off the island. You know, it doesn't work. It's poor planning. You know, that is the situation. I mean, what they've done already. To do more, yeah, it's a little bit crazy. And I'm not even sure if they're collecting the, I think it's the 106 tax or something. I'm not even sure it's benefiting the community by allowing this to happen. But it has already happened, and it's not working. As we said, we don't have doctors, we don't have services, schools, a whole lot's a mess.
Chris, what's your view on high density?
Yeah, I agree, it's out of control, and as I said as part of my 3-point plan, we don't want any more until we get the right facilities in place. We need a full stop, we need to take a step back, and I have been working with people like Councillor Andrew Rudd and other Conservatives to look at this issue, try and get a grip on it and get some action, because I agree, we're turning into Singapore, and, you know, we need a full stop.
Okay, Elaine, do you want to go next?
Yep. So I guess, so in this area, one of the things that's happened is the step down from one Canada Square that is supposed to exist seems to have gone flying out of the window. One of the things that I mentioned when I spoke right at the beginning about our plan for there being a way to appeal from the community when things get approved like that, is one of the things that we want to do to stop what happens at the moment, where essentially different levels of local authorities and local government can run roughshod over those kind of plans. I guess the balance is people want to live here, and that's great that there are so many opportunities here that people want to come into the borough, so it's how do we balance that against not building all of these skyscrapers. The spire is about to go up very close to where I live, which is many stories, and it's not great. It's just kind of another one of those things that just got that was approved, I believe, by City Hall rather than our actual local authority. So we want to make sure that people get more of a say in that. I'd like to see more, I guess, appropriate development in terms of where are the other areas of the borough that we could build if needed, where there's land available. And then also as a party, we want to do things like build at least 10 new garden cities. So trying to take some of the pressure off of London and off of areas that are already incredibly overdeveloped, and get people living in I guess, other areas, but still being able to come into where the opportunities are.
Thank you. David, what's your views on?
I think for me, first of all, I think it's great what you've done with the Residents Forum. I think it needs to teeth, it needs actually all the residents to back it, get involved and give you a real voice, I think, to government. I think as an MP, I think we need to work with the mayor, we need to work with the councillors, and actually together we need to look at how we can actually do the right thing for the people. I think for me personally, looking at like the community infrastructure levy, when you think about the amount of development, the amount of money made from all these properties, how come you haven't got the infrastructure? It's beyond me. I'd love to know what money's been generated, where is it, and how's it been spent, because we should have a very different outlook, I think, from what's happening on there. So yeah, I think that we need a better way of the money generated, actually, is it being spent properly, and can we do better?
Jim?
We obviously need buildings and homes to be properly planned, but we've got a real conflict. It's not only with respect to Elaine, people wanting to move into the borough, we've got 20,000 plus people on the waiting list desperate for homes. So we've got to build, and there's a conflict between wanting to build as much as possible, to house as many people decently as possible, and protect and safeguard the rights of people who already live in different parts of the borough. The density, as I understand it, and forgive me, this is not my area of expertise, and we had a wee chat before we started. I don't do planning. I trust the mayor and I trust Candida and the planning officers at the council, and they've got a track record which I think stands up to any kind of scrutiny in terms of the percentage of social housing they get from developments, the latest commitment from there in terms of socially affordable rents, which has been published. They need to make sure that the 106 agreements provide for appropriate numbers of schools, GP surgeries, transport links, and the rest of it. My understanding is that the density levels here on the island aren't as high as the density levels in the Bethan Green side of the borough. But of course, their estates, which are lower, they're not as high as some of the blocks going up here. Therefore, it's less visible. There needs to be, and I think the point's been made, the forum with resident empowerment, engaging with the local authority, through councillors, through the mayor, and have to make sure that they get that right, and there needs to be a collective approach to it. I think the council is trying to do that as best it can. I think the forum, as was mentioned earlier on, is very active and very aggressive in putting local residents' point of view. And from that, a consensus should arrive to make sure that we get that which is acceptable to the vast majority of people.
Okay, thanks, Bethan.
Well, we talked about the need for homes in the borough, most definitely, but I'm very surprised with people on the council waiting list were moving into some of these high-density blocks that are being built. And I think that's part of the question, who are these homes being built for, and are they actually being occupied by people? Because from what I understand, 2/3 of new buildings in the country are now bought in London, are now bought by investors, rather than people who actually want to live in them. So are we building these high-density buildings just for investors to come and make money off them, in which case is that really a suitable use of our land? I think unfortunately the planning system at the moment is very much skewed in favour of private developers rather than the community, and there needs to be something done to alter that power imbalance so that the communities around there have a bit more of a say in whether these developments go ahead or not.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. Go on, Nick.
I mean, you know, it's a problem for us. We live here, we love to live here, and I do feel that there's a conflict of interest, the Mayor and the MP being in the same party. I think there's a conflict of interest and there's no oversight scrutiny on what is being built. Because obviously, as the Green Party said, it's all private stuff. The people are being ethnically cleansed here. The people born here are being sent to Southampton, Liverpool, local people are being shipped out, and private properties being built for them here. So I think we should really address the problem in a bigger way and have some type of oversight scrutiny on what these guys are doing.
Anyone else want to say anything? Let's take a specific question from Jason regarding a new secondary school. Can I just explain the background?
So I've lived on the Isle of Dogs for over 10 years. I have 2 young boys.
So can you speak up a little bit?
Sorry.
Oh, actually, have you got a microphone?
Yes, my name is Jason. I've lived on the Isle of Dogs for over 10 years now. And I have 2 young boys going to a local primary school. It's actually a free school, outstanding. It's called Cllr Oliur College. Anyway, the problem I have now is there isn't a secondary school that we're happy with, and that there are places for it. Many parents like myself are considering moving from the Isle of Dogs just to go to a better secondary school, or a secondary school. So what I'm hoping is that the secondary school will be built here. I understood there was going to be one over at the workshop site, but I'm not sure anymore. So my question basically is, if you're elected MP, will you support building the secondary school in the Isle of Dogs, on the Isle of Dogs? Thank you.
Let's do this fairly quickly. Let's go on, Chris.
Tooth and nail.
Yes. Nick?
Oh, yes.
I've just been through the school selection process as well myself for my daughter, and we need to get our first choice school, second choice school, third choice school. In fact, it was the fourth choice school that we had. So yes, I very much understand the problems of finding a suitable school in the borough. In terms of supporting secondary school, we would support the local education authority secondary school, but we would not support the free school.
Why is that?
We don't believe in the free school system. We think that it's over expensive. They're not good value for money. In terms of the sites that we purchase at free schools, they generally cost a lot more than they should have done. So we believe that actually should be more local education authorities for example in free schools.
All right, James.
Certainly support new secondary school. There might even be the prospect of 2, given the number of homes that are being built. Cllr Oliur College has got permission, they've got the green light from government, and they've got the priority planning and finance, so that's going ahead. If there's a need for a second school, then I don't see why we should stop at 1, but that certainly looks as though it's going to happen, and clearly there is a demand and there is a need, and there is parental support for it. There's also parental angst about the free school getting a free pass and getting the green light. But that shouldn't be at the expense of other options. It should be the ability to have the schools that we need, as many as we need, to look after the pupils that are coming through.
Okay, thanks, David.
Yeah, moving here with my wife as a teacher, I was surprised at the lack of secondary schools here. And the ambition is to go from 40,000 residents to 100,000. We've got to do this. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely would support it, and like the others have said, this should be the first one of a number that are built on the Isle of Dogs. And one of the things we want to do as a party as well is make sure local authorities have powers to make sure that developers deliver what they promise. So if we are promised a school in a new development, we actually get that, rather than little amendments being made to planning applications later on.
Okay, thanks. Let's move on. Let's move on to David Newman, environmental policy. You want to do a question?
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, let me say that I'm encouraged about the future of our country listening to this debate, because there's a lot of good candidates on the panel of this hearing. David Cameron 7 years ago said he wants to make Britain the greenest country in the world, the most environmentally friendly country in the world. Since then, we have the worst air quality in Europe. We have low recycling rates. We don't collect our food waste in England. We've approved Hinkley Point. We're reducing our incentives to renewable energy. I want to know what the panel is going to do about that. And I know I'm going to vote for the Green Party candidate, because she will obviously be saying the sort of things I want to hear. But I want to hear from the parties, Labour, Conservative Party,
let's run Bethan last then. So, Jim, why don't you kick off?
Okay, thanks for that, David. I sit on the EFRA Select Committee, as I mentioned right at the beginning. We've just finished our report into food waste and had some excellent evidence presented to us. England doesn't have a target for food waste, as just one example, whereas Wales does, Scotland does, and they're making much more progress than us. On litter, again, we don't have a strategy in terms of dealing with that, and the support for Keep Britain Tidy, the NGO, which is supposed to champion the anti-litter strategy in the UK, has been cut by 60%. Government needs to do more to get behind that. On air quality, I mentioned the cruise terminal at Enderby Wharf, where I have been liaising with local residents. Ralph, who's here, has been leading the charge for residents. The council have been involved. There are no regulations for diesel emissions from the Thames, and there is no requirement for the cruise ships, which will be coming in a few years' time, to actually be able to draw their energy from a shore-side supply. They're going to be running their massive diesel engines 24/7 to power the ship, and those ships are going to be in for 155 days a year in one of the biggest hotspots for poor air quality that London has. So on environmental issues, these are big issues for me. I don't agree with Bethan about the Silvertown tunnel should go ahead. I believe it should go ahead. I believe that the Blackwall tunnel and the congestion that's created by that, and when we get gridlock in East London, static traffic creates more emissions than flowing traffic. We need extra river crossings to get traffic moving, to get away from our part of the capital as quickly as possible, because with the development that is going on here in Canary Wharf and the Royal Docks in the Olympic site, East London has been growing for 30 years. It's going to continue to grow. There are 2 river crossings east of Tower Bridge. There are 22 the other side of Tower Bridge, and half of London's population now lives east of Tower Bridge. I've been pushing for the pedestrian and cycle crossing from Rotherhithe to Canary Wharf. We need more bridges, we need more tunnels, we need to prioritise public transport, we need to prioritise cycling, we need to prioritise walking, but we need to make sure that we're investing in transport infrastructure in terms of trains and buses. Crossrail will make a big difference, but this is a huge issue, so forgive me, I've only scratched the surface of it.
David, do you want to go next? Environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my main concerns about a Brexit deal. I mean, one good thing about being in the EU, I think, has been enforcing our standards to a certain level, and one of my concerns is actually coming out, we don't want to get, like, suddenly we're accepting lower standards. So I think these are the biggest issues of our generation, and actually we shouldn't be having cruise ships coming down the Thames. You know, things that are planned, I think, for the future, we've got to really look at and actually campaign against. We shouldn't be doing things that we know is going to seriously compromise the health of the people that live in London and the surrounding areas. So again, as an independent MP, for me, it's working with the experts in environmental issues and then being a voice for Poplar Limehouse in government to make sure that we don't accept things that we know is going to be killing people in 20 to 50 years through cancer and everything else that's going to happen with the wrong regulations and the things happening. So no, I think we need to get hard on enforcement and ensuring that people are doing what they need to do now for a better world.
Thank you, Elaine.
So there's a number of things that we want to do. There's an entire chapter of our manifesto about it, so I'd encourage you to go and read it, because I won't be able to take all of it now. One of the things that we are heavily against is airport expansion, particularly in the south. So we know London City Airport are constantly lobbying to have larger planes flying out of there. We're against that. We're against the third runway at Heathrow, because our air is polluted enough already without adding to it even more. And when we were in coalition, we had a zero carbon standard for new homes. That was abolished by the Tories as soon as the coalition ended. We would want to bring that back so that all of the new homes we're building are built to a zero carbon standard, and they're not making the pollution in the environment even worse. At least 60% of electricity coming from renewables by 2030. You might have seen a story last week about we had the most solar generated power ever last week when it was so sunny. That was one of the things that we ensured we invested in when we were in government. We would want to make sure we did that again. We're opposed to fracking. And one of the other things that we want to do that I know a bit about from my normal job is building better buildings. So there is a technique called passive house where you build a building in a way that significantly reduces the energy demand. In some cases you can reduce it by 90%. So I've been working with healthcare about reducing the energy demand of NHS buildings by about £10,000 a year. Those are the kind of things that we want to do as a party as well, so that when we are building, we're building in a way that is as good as possible for the environment and that we're not increasing energy demands even further.
Chris.
Yeah, I mean, we've published a plan regarding nitrogen dioxide, and if you look at some of the data with regards to greenhouse gas emissions, there has been a downward trend. But to be honest, this is an area I'm extremely disappointed in our record. And I do think, whilst our manifesto calls for local targeted action, we actually need to go a lot further, particularly here, if we look at issues like MP's war. And I would be a very robust voice on that. And actually, I think Brexit offers an opportunity, not just to say, oh, we're going to go back on EU standards, but how do we go above and beyond EU standards? I'd be a very strong voice on that issue and work with residents groups to share their ideas about how we can tackle these. You know, talk about what investment we need, what could be done. With regards to the Rotherhithe tunnel that was mentioned, which is going to cost 200 million quid, I actually, whilst not opposed to the principle of a bridge, I think that is in the wrong location. It's costing a lot, and I know I've listened to a lot of local residents who've got ideas where that might be better placed. So my door will be very much open to listening to concerns, and I will definitely be a bit of a Rottweiler on that issue in government, saying actually, what are we doing here? Why haven't we gone further enough? How do we get the best of it?
It's a huge question, but Chris is right. Leaving the EU doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get those standards. It means we create our own standards. But us personally, in the East End, where we die of cancer from pollution more than anywhere else in the country, it's particularly important to us that we try and get clean air. Now, we did have a day this year, didn't we, where the whole country run without any coal or, you know, emissions going into the atmosphere. So we are moving forward, but it is going to be between the Conservatives and the Labour, isn't it? I mean, it won't be UKIP who decides. But if I was to go to Parliament, I particularly would want cleaner air in the East End, especially for the children, where they're building schools on these highways, and yeah, we know that it's really hurting us.
Okay, Bethan, don't go forever.
As I say, I could go on for quite some time, I will try not to. I mean, as it's been said, it's such a big issue that we think it really has not been given the attention it deserves. There's absolutely nothing about it almost in the Labour manifesto. The Conservative Clean Air Plan has been so dire that it's now going to be subject to a court challenge. It's very, very short-sighted. Rich or poor, you're affected by air quality. You can't buy yourself a new set of lungs. It's just not good enough. I'm not opposed to all river crossings. I am opposed to the Silvertown Tunnel because I think a tunnel's the wrong way to go, and I also think it could be better sited, so I'm not opposed to all river crossings. I would, however, look at other solutions to gridlock in the borough, such as more investment in public transport. We are also opposed to airport expansion. We don't think it's necessary. We don't think the cost, in terms of the environmental cost, is worth what it would bring. We believe that we should be investing an awful lot more in renewable energy. It's been shown it can work across Europe. Germany now gets almost all of its energy from renewables because they've invested in it. We should be moving away from fossil fuels. We should be moving away from fracking, which could also poison our water. We're already on target to spectacularly fail the targets we agreed in Paris, and it will cost us all, dearly. We need to put more money into renewables. We need to fight flooding across the country and make sure that flood defences are up to standard. And yes, I could go on, so I'd better not.
There's one other question which is a yes/no answer. Ed, do you want to just quickly put it?
Yes. If I could, I've lived on the island since 1985. You'll have to forgive my accent. I am British. I just don't sound it.
It's going to be a fairly quick question because we're running out of time.
Very quick question. I'll make it even quicker. I'll just ask for a show of hands. The bridge, the cycle pedestrian bridge, seems to be a waste of money. but the investors in it are piling money into propaganda in the newspapers and so on. There's a survey being taken online which has no opposition to this. So something is wrong. No opposition in a survey. So can I ask the panel, first of all, just for a show of hands.
Why don't we just go along? Are you in favour or against?
Well, why don't we see a show of hands?
Well, we could do a show. Go on then, do.
Okay. If you are opposed to the cycle pedestrian crossing, can you raise your hand? If you're in favour of it, raise your hand. Okay, can I do the same thing with the audience? You're opposed to the cycle river crossing. It's
in its current location.
In its current location, it lands at Cascades and Anchorage Point developments. So it's in the northeast, northwest over the Thames. Yeah.
I didn't raise my hand because the question is too simplistic. I'm opposed to it without an awful lot further work on actually what it will bring, but I'm not opposed to cycling pedestrian crossings per se.
Okay, let's leave it at that then. We're not going to be able to. I need to.
Can I just say who's against the cycle pedestrian crossing? You don't know anything about it.
I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to ask each of the candidates, please, to do a 1 minute wrap up. I'm going to ask a yes/no question to each of you, and you can start your wrap up perhaps by answering it. And the question is, have you actually commented on the neighbourhood, the Isle of Dogs neighbourhood plan? Have you participated in the consultation, yes or no? And could I ask each of you now to give a 1 minute wrap up? Let's start with Chris.
No. Yes, so this is a national election. I'm not here offering to grow. As you've taken from the discussion tonight, I'm not here offering a magic money tree. All I am saying is if you back my 3-point plan, I'd be a very aggressive champion for you to get the right deal from what looks like could be a majority Conservative government. And this is a national election at a critical moment in our country's history. Who do you want going into that room to negotiate with the EU 27 to get the right Brexit? Theresa May or Jeremy Corbyn? That's the question, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Nick, you have up to a minute to go.
Thanks for listening to me tonight.
Did you comment on the plan?
No. Okay. The area is much bigger than the islands. We've got Limehouse, so I think you're around to look at that plan. But if you vote for me, I will fight for you in Parliament and I will bring back what is needed. You will hear me speaking in Parliament, unlike the representative we've got at the moment. So yeah, if you're a Conservative, lend me your vote. I'll make sure Brexit goes through and then we get a good deal. If you're working class, vote for me. I will fight for you. So thanks very much. Vote you.
Yeah, Bethan.
Shamefully, I have not looked at the plan. I will and I will comment. Thank you. You don't need to vote strategically in this borough. If you believe in Green Party policies, and when surveys have been done, most people actually believe in Green Party policies and they would talk in sense, very much so. So you don't need to vote strategically. If you believe in Green Party policies, vote for us.
Thank you very much. Jim.
Richard, I think I'm the only candidate here who actually lives on the Isle of Dogs. And I haven't responded to the plan because, to be perfectly frank, I think as MP, I think we're getting appropriate on the basis that I'm the Member of Parliament and I might have to do stuff about it in later times, so I haven't planned it. Can I say, firstly, thanks for everybody for attending. I hope it was useful. And despite what Mr McQueen said, if you look on the website, they work for you. You can check what I do in Parliament and make your own mind up whether I'm silent or not. And secondly, with respect to the minor parties, as I've already said, this election certainly here is between the Conservatives and Labour. But with 7 years of Tory government, and their strategy has been tax cuts for corporates and millionaires, whilst the 2008 world crash is paid for by ordinary taxpayers, the weak and the vulnerable. We've seen mismanagement of the NHS, cuts to education, reduced police numbers, all as examples of Tory government. Labour's committed to a fairer tax system and a fairer Britain. Do please vote next Thursday, and I'll be very grateful if you vote for me. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for listening.
Very good. David, did you comment on the plan?
I have not yet commented on the plan, but as we're planning to move here, I certainly will be commenting on the plan. For me, it's I'm starting as an independent, and people say independents don't become MPs, and I think that's not true. I think whether there's a Labour government or a Conservative government, a centrist independent like me could work with both. So I think you'll have a strong MP for Poplar Limehouse working together. I've already proven on a personal level, I'm not waiting to be paid to tackle the issues in society. I've been doing it and funding it myself. Imagine what we could do if actually I was your MP working on the same basis. So a trainee who I got into work actually emailed me today, he got my leaflet to the door and said, David, you could be the British Macron. So I say I certainly have.
I think that ought to be the end of your minute. Elaine, question to you. Did you comment on the plan?
I haven't yet, but I did come to the public meeting that there was before the election was called, and being a Democrat, I'm very excited for the referendum next year. So in terms of elections around here, look, I don't think that Brexit is done and dusted, and one of the things in this election is to make sure that as an area we've got people in Parliament that will stand up for us, make sure that whether you voted Remain or Leave, that we know what the impact on this area is going to be, and that people are shielded from that as much as possible. My team and I have spoken to thousands of people since the election was called, and as far as it looks like to us, it's not between the Labour and the Conservatives here. They took ages to select a candidate, all due respect, Chris. And we've been working really hard for the past 2 years and talking to lots of people about what we've been doing. So we think it will be between us and Jim this time. If you want someone that will stand up for you in Parliament and stand up against the hard Brexit that the Tories are trying to drag us through, then please vote Lib Dem next week on Thursday.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all of you for such a wonderful contribution. Also thanks to the Seven Mills Primary School, to my personal teacher who gave us permission to use the hall, and to John, the caretaker, who's been looking after us. I think this has been a very useful session. Thank you for clarifying so many points and answering so directly. Thank you for coming along. Hustings are an interesting thing, that they tend to attract people who are already interested in the subject, and they don't bring in people who aren't interested in the subject, and hopefully we've got a bit of a mix here of people who are not normally coming to Hustings, so that'd be very good. But thanks everybody very much indeed for coming along, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Surgery is council. Very good. Thank you. Yes.
There's an extra material at the side for the shirt.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.